Maybe I'll make a video series, Ice Cream with Josh. Yeah. Maybe not. Anyway, I've had this idea. The laws of logic, the methods that we use to determine truth, cannot be themselves justified and cannot themselves be determined to be true or false. To speak of truth or falsity, when we're talking about the frameworks, seems silly. Wittgenstein said similar stuff, but I don't like name dropping, so that's as much as I'm going to go there. Well, let's see, I'm thinking about calling this the logic box. Basically, we can construct the logic box, and it's usually about what seems intuitively to make sense. You know? So, my tongue hurts. I burnt it on coffee, so I have to ice cream once in a while. Anyway, we construct the logic box, and through the logic box we determine truth and falsity and stuff. And the core of the logic box, of course, is the law of non-contradiction, which itself cannot be proven true, for it's sort of the basis of truth. So it's silly to say the law of contradiction is true or false. It's simply the engine of the logic box, or the logic machine. It's what makes the machine work. Even though the machine itself is not true or false. In a scientific sense, I suppose you could say that the scientific method is also exempt from talk of truth and falsity. The scientific method is not true or false. It's more of itself also a kind of logic box. Itself, we can question it in terms of how practical it is and how much it works as a method. As far as we know, the scientific method is the best way to determine most types of empirical truths. So it is a logic box. The only criterion for choosing it as the best logic box is that it's most useful. It holds the most. It seems to be the best at determining truth and falsity, even though it itself is neither true nor false. I think that we can get to a point of also speaking about society. No? Maybe society has a social box that is neither true nor false. Which is why race gets really complicated, because race is a good chunk of it's in the social box and not in the empirical realm of it's not in the empirical realm where science can do work determining truth and falsity. It's in the social box, which to me it seems like the logic box is exempt from truth and falsity. Like preferences are a good example. If I say this is my favorite type of ice cream, which it is. My favorite type of ice cream is the chocolate mint flavor. Not just because it's my favorite color. Green, which you probably figured out from my name, my YouTube channel, Green. But yeah, the proposition when we know that the referent is Josh Brooks, is a true statement. The proposition is true that Josh Brooks likes chocolate mint ice cream. But is my preference, is the preference itself true? And that my choosing to like this ice cream over other ice cream, is that true or false? I mean, it's true that it is my favorite, but is the preference itself true or false? Am I wrong or false in liking chocolate mint ice cream? Would I be right and truer to like, Napoleon or vanilla? Of course not. And when you understand that a little bit there, you understand there's a wider implication for all of society. and that is we have a society-wide kind of preferences, as well as narratives, stories that we tell ourselves to make sense of what's going on around us. Kind of like a game, which I hate the name drop again, but if you know Wittgenstein, game is a very complicated, twisty word. Maybe it's just kind of like a game that we play, social game. Like when it comes to race and culture and music, it's just sort of a social box. It's an amalgamation of preferences, shared preferences in groups, because I'm starting to take the more Hegelian view that the individual doesn't really exist entirely, that the individual is mostly relational in its existence, you know, for the most part. Sorry to any hardcore liberals on my, or hardcore classical liberals on my subscriber page. You might think that an individual is very, self-determining. But anyway, yeah. So I like particular type of music, and there's an entire culture around it. But it isn't true or false, because it's sort of a game we play. Social constructs come into handy too. And also, the mistake that's made a lot is that people hear about the social box and they want to destroy it, which is stupid. We should simply understand what's in the social box and what is in the empirical realm. You know? Yep. And that's me getting ice cream on my awesome shirt. Anyway. So they're really just narratives we tell. So, yeah, with the race as well. Only a small amount of it is biological, and the small amount of it that is biological is just really just enough to tell you what race people are in. Alright, it helps to identify which social construct people are in. Because of course, race is just not just skin color; it's a whole shebang of physical features. You know, but from as far as I know, not a whole lot of actual big differences in the empirical realm when it comes to race, like IQ and stuff. It's just enough to signify what social, where they fit in the social box. It's an identifier. And because of how culture is created, which is within the social box, at least for now, race is within the social box, which is itself exempt from truth or falsity, which is why the issue is so damn confusing. And let's see, pretty much all subcultures are set up like that, and cultures are set up like that too, in the wide realm. You know, it's an amalgamation of patterns of features. It's important to think of it in terms of patterns too. When you're talking about group identity and groups in general, it's important to think in terms of patterns and averages, never in terms of all. Because of course, if you say Italians are this way, you would be silly to say all, because obviously you can find an exception somewhere. But it makes more sense to say on average this group is like this, or there is a strong pattern of X in group Y. And usually, of course, the strong pattern is based on the social box, of course, you know, the amalgamation of preferences and such. The amalgamation of narratives and stories and values that we create for a variety of purposes, usually use. So like religion, like businesses, governments are all social constructs that societies create to help make sense of their social environment. But of course those are all, because those are exempt within, they're exempt from truth and falsity, they're within the social box, or the social machine. So of course, the proposition governments exist, or businesses exist, are true in a social context. In other words, they exist socially. So like, of course, because businesses and governments are social constructs, they don't exist in the same way that a post-it exists. They exist in the same kind of way, you know, like race exists as it's a narrative or story that we tell that's very useful. And very action guiding. So yeah, I think that's why I don't really like scientism, because scientism acts as if everything can be determined by the scientific method, even though the scientific method itself cannot be proven by the scientific method. But we can intuitively and philosophically understand that the scientific method is superior because of its pragmatic use value. Not saying that pragmatic use value is the absolute. This isn't really a matter of absolutes. Well, I'd say pretty absolutely non-contradiction is really necessary to have a good logic machine. If you don't have that, your logic machine is like crappy. pretty darn crappy. But yeah, talking about important matters, it's in debates. It's not always a matter of truth and falsity. It's not always a matter of facts being true or not. It's a matter of reasoning and intuition and reflection, which I think is the major part of the battle, not just in terms of determining truth and falsity in claims. I can't think of what more to say, and this has been kind of rambly anyway, so this is the end of my video.